Welcome to Goldfish on Games. I am Mr. Fish. I actually do all the hard work around here, while that bearded one, he's just here for the eye candy. As the channel has hit a major milestone, as we hit 1,000 subscribers, we decided to do an interview. So, let's swim to it, shall we? Thank you for joining me, Goldfish. Are you ready to get grilled?
Thanks, Mr. Fish. Yes, please, let's get this started.
Retrobytes, who also broke the 1k barrier just recently, asked the following question. What made you decide to do your own channel?
I've been building up this collection for a little while, and I realised that, a lot of the games and hardware that I had wasn't really being talked about. Or if it was being done in a very negative way. So I thought, why aren't there more positive videos about this stuff? And realised if anyone was going to do it, I guess it would have to be me. And while the collection has grown, I have to admit it's given me less time to actually enjoy it. Trying to find the work-life channel balance has been quite difficult this year.
The Flying Ninja 1 wants to know, what are some of your most favourite Master System games?
Now I have to say that this list will be missing quite a few of the more well-known titles, but it's mostly based on the games that I had when I was growing up. And the Sonic games do have to be pretty high up on that list, at least 1 and 2. Chaos I wasn't a big fan of, I have to admit. And I have to say I was a big fan of some of the cartoon games like Asterix or the Lucky Dime Caper. They looked absolutely amazing. And obviously that has to include Tasmania, as I've done a video on it. Other top mentions have to go to Shadow Dancer and Impossible Mission, both of which were great games on the Master System. And the last game I have to mention is one that I got into much later in life, and that was Wonder Boy 3 in the Dragon's Trap. That was such a great game.
King Europe 1 wants to know, how did we get into the games industry?
After uni, I got myself a nice, if slightly unchallenging job in a large media company. And then out of the blue, an old flatmate of mine messaged me to say that the company he was working for was looking for more staff. So I brushed up on my C++ skills, applied, had an interview, and then passed and got a job offer all within the space of a few days. It really was a whirlwind tour. Then just a few months later, I packed everything I could into my car, which didn't include most of my collection that had to go into storage, and I started my new job in the games industry. And 12 years later, I'm still here. Though I do have to say, in that time, I've done a little bit of everything in the games industry. But just recently, I found myself a nice little niche that I've been able to get myself into, and it's something that I really enjoy doing.
Ponder's Retro Goodness asks, what was my first retro purchase, aka the first not bought as new? And did it hook me into retro gaming?
This might be a bit of a difficult question to ask, so there might be a few bits to it. But the first bit of retro hardware that I bought second hand was actually the ZX Spectrum. This one here. And I bought that at an auction, and it actually gave me something to play while our Amiga 500 was sent off to be fixed. Now I'm not sure you could completely call it retro, because even in the 90s when I got it, you could still buy brand new software for it in the shops. So really, the first proper bit of retro hardware that I bought was the CD32, which back in the early 2000s when I got it, you could actually pick one up for about £35, which is a far cry from what you can get them for today. And yep, it did get me into retro collecting, as not long after that I got myself a Sega Saturn, a Mega Drive, and a whole bunch of other hardware.
Pete1478 asks, what is your favourite light gun, but is it actually regarded as the best by others?
Now I think that might have to be one that we've not covered yet, which is the Sega Saturn Virtua Gun. Now it might not have had as many buttons as some of the light guns that we've covered. It did work quite nicely and it did fit really well in the hand, or at least these big mitts. But I'm going to guess that most people would probably go for the GunCon, which I think is a pretty good gun, but I'm not a big fan of the buttons at the end. They always seem to be a bit far out of the way for me.
Alexei wants to know more about the RISC PC 600, as it was very interesting, and wants to know more about its exclusives.
The RISC PC and RISC-OS are both things that I've been wanting to cover in more detail, but the big problem tends to be cost, as I like to show off the boxes as well as the hardware itself, and trying to get either of those for the RISC PC isn't easy. There's not a lot of it, and what tends to be around is quite expensive. There are definitely more games that I want to look into in more detail, some that we've seen previously and others that I've only just barely looked at. And the great thing is about the machine is that a number of the games have been legally released on the internet so you can download and play them. so we might end up having to check them out that way. So hopefully 2021 will be the year that we take another look at that very interesting machine.
Control Alt Reese asked us to ponder the following. What game surprised us the most? Either because it was better than expected, or it was worse than expected.
Well, first of all, congratulations Control Alt Reese for hitting that 1k milestone. I know it's a lot of work to get to, so all the best to you, mate. You deserve it. And as for your question, well, I think I can answer both sides of it, as the game that surprised me the most when I bought it has to be Half-Life. Now, I bought the game based on some of the screenshots and the previews, as at that point absolutely no reviews had hit. So I just looked at it and thought, yep, I want to get that. And I have to admit, there was a few times when I almost took it back to the shop before I got home, because I noticed that it required 400 megabytes of hard drive space, and I only had a 1.3 gigabyte hard drive, so I was going to have to clear a lot of space if I wanted to install it, but thankfully I decided to keep it. And when I booted it up, I was absolutely gobsmacked by that train sequence, and I had no idea it was in game until my brother knocked the table and suddenly the view moved. It was like, wow, this is what the game was going to look like? This is how it's going to play? It just blew my mind. And that game remained one of my favourites of all time. Not just because itself was an amazing game, but it also came with a level editor and everything else. It was just incredible. And I bought it purely on a whim. As for the game that disappointed me the most, well, that has to be Dune 2000. Now, I was an absolutely massive Dune 2 fan. It was one of those games that I played to death with my mates. We just loved it. We even created our own card game based on it. So when I found out they were making a remaster to it, I just jumped on it straight away and I pre-ordered it. And, well, yeah, it taught me don't pre-order games. As when I got it, it just was not what I was wanting. So what I was hoping for was the Dune 2 gameplay, with some quality of life improvements and some slightly better graphics. What we got was CNC with a Dune skin, which wasn't quite what I was after. Now I have to admit I have come to terms with it in later years. But
Ben Gonshaw would like to know, what was your favourite Dreamcast peripheral, as it was a golden age of creativity and arcade experiences coming into the home. But please don't say it was that Fishman mic.
Well, I actually do have the Fishman mic, but I think my copy of the game is actually Japanese, so I can't really say that it's my favourite as I've never really played it. Now this might get my retro card taken away from me, but I have to say the Dreamcast wasn't a machine I ever really got into. My mates had one and I played on theirs, but it wasn't something that I personally got myself massively into. That's not to say I've not picked up a few bits of hardware, as I do have a racing wheel as well as the light gun. And, well, you know me, I think I'd have to go with the light gun. Though I do have to say I really want to pick up that fishing rod at some point.
And well, the last question is from me, and that is, what would you like to say to all of those watching right now?
Well, I have to say to all of you that's watching, thank you so much for watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, and everything that you've done for the channel this year. It's been absolutely amazing. You lot have been absolutely awesome. I never really expected to get to this point, as I honestly thought that I'd either lose interest or find it difficult to try and keep that balance. This has to be the longest running project I have ever done. But you lot have kept me going, as you've all been absolutely awesome, so a big thank you once again.
And until next time, I've been Mr. Fish, that was the Goldfish, and this has been Goldfish on Games. I hope to see you all again very soon.
Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you can let me know down in the comments, or you can use those buttons just below. You know the ones I mean. Or if you're not sure yet, then you can check out 2 other videos that I've done that are on the screen right now. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon.